In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, all praise is due to our Creator, our Cherisher, our Nourisher, and our Sustainer. We bear witness there's none worthy of worship but Allah. We bear witness, we believe in all the prophets who came throughout history. And we bear witness that Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa ashabihi wa sallam, is the final of all the emissaries of Allah. Beloved brothers and sisters, ulama, huffaz, qurra, elders, respected youth, I greet you with the Islamic universal greeting of peace at this auspicious hour of Jum'ah, in this beautiful house of Allah, in this most beautiful city in the world. I say to you, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. We are currently in a world inundated with noise. Overwhelming invasion of noise and distractions. And even libraries or mosques that are intended to be havens of tranquility have become bustling hubs of constant chatter, of ringing phones, of digital pings. And this transformation of our society to a noisy world isn't just a trivial change in atmosphere and the ambience of the places we expect there to be some form of silence, but it is symptomatic of a larger shift in the behavioral attitudes and the culture of our society, where the value of silence, of quietude and tranquility is being drowned out by the ever-present noise and sound that surrounds us. We should realize that the consistent external sounds and noise creates within us an internal discord, making it difficult for us to really think, for us to truly reflect, for us to be able to really listen, to be able to discern, and to even listen to our own inner voice. And this constant bombardment of information, of sound, of noise, of auditory intrusion disrupts not just our ears, but indeed it disrupts our very capacity to connect even with ourselves, what to speak of our connection with our Creator. We cannot truly appreciate, therefore, the spiritual value of silence. Abu Darda, radiyallahu anhu, a companion of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, said, "As-samtu hikmun wa qalilun fa'ilu." He said, silence is a form of wisdom, but few people practice it. Our hearts and minds are so full of noise that you can't always really hear the call of life itself, the cries of our conscience, the echoes of our soul. It is said that silence is golden, indicating the value of silence. However, that does not imply being quiet in the face of oppression and in the face of injustices. Because such kind of silence, in the face of oppression and when confronted with injustices, is not golden, but rather cowardly and yellow. The Ummah is currently witnessing one of the most dire phases in our history. Callous massacres of innocent civilians at the hands of the strongest and best equipped armies in the world. And right now, we see what's happening in Palestine, and we see what's happening in Sudan. It's about geography, it's about control of land, it's about dispossession of people, it's about securing mineral resources. Those countries that have all these flashy golds that we buy in the Middle East and Europe, none of them produce gold, by the way, and you wonder from where it comes and what they would do to make those gold flow to those areas of the world. But that's another topic for another time. Most of the world leaders are either supportive or silent or indifferent. And this is a serious indictment on those who are complicit by their silence. This is the yellow silence, which we don't encourage. That silence of indifference to the plight of the oppressed, and in the case of Palestine, of those who are consistently being occupied. People are now being starved. About 10 million people are facing starvation in Sudan, and the world is silent. But let's remind ourselves that history will not be kind to those who watch and say nothing and do nothing. To those diplomats who, when they say, rather should have remained silent because what they say are empty statements. And to the media houses that parrot lies or that cover the truth. To those citizens who turned away because the bodies were not white enough or not human enough in their eyes. Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah, is reported to have said, "Ista'inu ala al-kalami bil-samt wa ala al-istinbati bil-fikr." Seek help in speaking with silence and in reasoning with reflection. Seek help in speaking with silence and in reasoning with reflection, because we are duty bound to speak out against injustice and corruption. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in a very well-known hadith documented in the Sahih of Imam Muslim, is reported to have said, "Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadihi, فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه فإن لم يستطع فبقلبه وذلك أضعف الإيمان." The categories, not just the silence of cowardice. Islam doesn't tolerate that. Be very careful how, as much as we're talking about silence, but at the same time, be very careful not to use it as an excuse to tolerate injustice, to be complicit in what is wrong. Because sometimes people use that. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Whoever amongst you observes an evil, a wrong, an oppression, an injustice, let him change it physically." In other words, engage to the best of your ability if you can do so. And if you cannot do that, then speak out. Don't be silent. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ. Then speak out. Don't be silent and say, well, silence is wisdom, silence is golden. No, that silence is yellow, it's cowardly. Then speak out. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ. And if you can't even do that, فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ, it's conditional. If you cannot even do that, then at least find the wrong, the oppression, the injustice distasteful in your heart. Because a believer, by virtue of one who pursues ihsan and adl, of goodness and justice, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُ بِالْعَدْلِ وَالْإِحْسَانِ, under all circumstances, one who pursues adl and ihsan can never be indifferent, never be indifferent. Even if he or she stands alone, can never be indifferent to injustice or to corruption or to evil. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke in the struggle for freedom and justice. He said, "What people will ultimately remember," and I quote, "is the silence of our friends." Because sometimes those who are around us and those you expect to speak remain silent. So the phrase that silence is golden takes on a profound meaning when we consider that silence can very often be worn by those who are cowards, and don't mistake the garb of silence for it to be golden. Rather, it is a sign of cowardice. We're still trying to find justice for Steve Biko. The case is still ongoing. Nearly 50 years ago, as an example, because it's very important to bring it back home. Sometimes we relate to things further away, so the further away it is, the more disconnected we are, and then we have nothing to do about it except to talk about it. More than 50 years ago, the death of Steve Biko exposed how the South African Medical and Dental Council and the Medical Association of South Africa abandoned its ethical duty to the people it was meant to protect. It shielded doctors who collaborated with apartheid authorities. It legitimized racist medical appointments. It ignored the torture and neglect of political detainees. Its inaction, like many of the Muslim rulers in the land and many of the fatwa of those people who are subservient to such rulers who promote imperialist agendas, inaction such like that makes it complicit in state violence. And in the case of Steve Biko, it led to his brutal killing at the hand of the police. Until today, the quest for justice has not been fulfilled. Then there is another form of silence. Imposed silence. Silence that is deadly. More journalists have been killed in Gaza than in both world wars put together. More than both the world wars, more than the Vietnam War, more than what happened in Yugoslavia, as well as in the war in Afghanistan. Yet, even the journalists are silent about it. Because they were killed, these journalists, it's said between 247 to 252. That was the amount a few weeks ago, by the way. Because they were exposing the atrocities, the crimes, the genocide on the ground. They were silenced by death so that the truth may be buried. And they were killing the messengers in order to silence the reality. Let's impose silence. But then in our communities, in our societies, there's a different silence. There are silence of those who are suffering the pain of abuse, of children who may come from broken homes, who are victims of the situation, of parents who may be involved in drugs, families which are dysfunctional. And such kind of pain is a different kind of pain, or such kind of silence by some of those should not be taken for cowardice. It's not only golden, but it's something that hearkens the conscience of those who have faith to respond to those kinds of people who are not able to speak for themselves. The poet says, "Mere khamoshi mein meri kahani hai. Mere khamoshi mein meri kahani hai, jo lafzon se bayan nahi ho sakta." My silence is my story, and words cannot convey that story. The silence is not because I don't say it. Words will not convey it. मेरी खामोशी को मेरी कमजोरी नहीं समझो. ये वो दर्द है जो चीख कर सुनाया जा नहीं सकता. The pain is such that even if I scream it, you still won't understand the depth of the pain. And this is where those who are able to guide and assist, alleviate the suffering and the hardship of people, even within our communities. Children who are born in poverty. Just we found that a plane full of Palestinians were held up for 9 hours within the plane. In this country, which has taken the Zionists to the World Court, to the ICJ. And in this country, the authorities found it appropriate to keep these people who came as political exiles, disregard their rights, and it's almost as if it's okay. And there were pastors and Christian priests who were at the forefront of trying to secure their release. I suppose we were too busy with making fatwa about who's kafir among ourselves to be able to help them. You see, we need a silence not of cowardice, nor a silence of indifference, nor a silence of complicity, but a silence of courage that demands us to speak when we have to speak, but that demands of us introspection at all times. The need for silence in a noisy world stems from the ability of silence to reduce stress at a personal level, to improve mental clarity, and foster a deeper connection with oneself, one's purpose in life, with one's creator, with one's society. It provides a necessary space for the brain to consolidate our memories. How often do we remember and reflect on people the day they die, and at the funeral we speak about how good they were, and up till the day they died we never bothered to even to visit them. We give flowers to them when they are dead at their funerals, but didn't give it to them, didn't give flowers. We go for the 40 days afterwards and we debate, is it bid'ah to do 40 days or not? But the man was alive, we never visited him. Now you visit the family to show that you were there, but you were never there for him when you were sick. We put beautiful words on his tombstones. What a great person he was. We never had the courage of conviction to tell him thank you while he was alive. We need that kind of silence that provides a space for the brain to consolidate our memories, to appreciate our connectivity, our relations, enhance our creativity, to process the information, to be able to discern what is worthy and not worthy. We are bombarded with emails and pings and messages and clips. We don't even know what's true anymore, just forward it to other people. But we need a silence that will bring about a greater self-awareness, a degree of inner peace, a degree of calmness in a state of our being. And we need to find that restorative power of silence that creates the space necessary for the realization of the reality that we are facing, so that we are able to respond to the reality in the most positive and the most meaningful way. It allows us to quiet our minds, set aside distractions, and attune ourselves to the gentle nudges of the Spirit. Allah makes reference to this in the Quran, in Surah Muzammil, when He speaks about the prayer at night. إِنَّ نَاشِئَةَ اللَّيْلِ هِيَ أَشَدُّ وَطْأً وَأَقْوَمُ قِيلًا. Surely during the late hours of the night, silence. It's dark, it's silent. Surely during the late hours of the night, the mind contemplates most strongly, and the conscience speaks with greater clarity. Not people speak to you, your conscience speaks to you with greater clarity. And the most silent moments of the day are the times of tahajjud, for example. We don't have time to spend in nature, to reflect upon the creation, because all of these are ayat that connects us with the creation of Allah, of which we are part, but also makes us connect with our purpose in life. It is our duty and our responsibility to embrace the quiet moments, the silent moments of solitude that allows us to focus better and heal faster and find clarity in our chaos. When I say finding ourselves in silence, it's a stillness that forces us to face ourselves, to create opportunities to engage in critical self-examination and also of introspection, what we call muhasabah. We need a samt ta'ammuli, in other words, introspective silence. A silence that is valuable, meaningful, not cheap nor cowardly. A silence that is muhasabah related, introspective, critical, and self-evaluatory. We have filled the earth with noise, with debates, with labels, with flags, with sects, with systems, with slogans. We make a lot of noise in the name of truth while abandoning the reality of truth. We make golden noise for unity of the ummah, but in cowardly silence, we are suspicious of those from our own faith who may differ with us on some matters. And in our silent but painful tweets, we vilify each other. Such kind of silence is not golden. We need a silence neither cowardly nor repressive, but reflective, introspective, empathetic, and morally empowering, spiritually uplifting, one that is truly golden. And when we are in public or alone, I'll leave you with this. When we are in public or alone, let our companionship always be good. Let our companionship always be good. And let our presence, our silence, and our speaking be positive. I leave you with a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, documented in the Shu'ab al-Iman of Imam al-Bayhaqi, where the Rasul said, Al-wahda khayrun min jalisi as-su' wal-jalisu salih khayrun min al-wahda wa imla'u al-khayr khayrun min as-sukut was-sukut khayrun min imla'i ash-shar. Solitude, to be alone, is better than keeping bad company. And good company is better than being alone. Speaking is better than silence if it's good, and silence is better than speaking evil. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us that in all our deliberations, that we be of those who reflect, who introspect, stand for what is right, do what is good, and insha'Allah abide by the values brought to us as reflected in the Quran and manifested by our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.